freedom was sort of chopped into pieces. For some reason, we have lost our way because the founders understood what freedom was. They understood that freedom from the individual was exactly the same freedom that gave us freedom of the marketplace and private property rights and contractual law. But about 100 years ago or so, it became that one group would defend civil liberties, and generally they would be called liberals and say, oh yeah, they care about privacy issues and the First Amendment. And then conservatives said, no, they didn't like that. We needed to tell people how to live and behave, and we need to modify and control moral behavior. And then the conservatives came along and said, well, we have to protect the free enterprise system in the marketplace. But the liberals say, oh, no, economic liberty is not a good idea. We have to make it a fair society and redistribute wealth and have the welfare state. Well, both sides won. One side destroyed the market, and the other side destroyed personal liberty. I say, let's put it back together and defend personal liberty and economic liberty together. Now, in some ways, we do accept the idea of personal liberty. Not well, but for the most part, not many people would give up and campaign and say, you know, I don't protect the First Amendment. No, everybody says, you know, we should have intellectual liberty and freedom. But, you know, in the age of political correctness, sometimes we really don't have the First Amendment well protected. Then you have the federal regulations protecting exactly what you can say and do on the radio waves, because we don't want anything to be said that is not nice and impolite, and therefore there are a lot of rules and regulations. So, but basically, we as a people say that we should have the right of intellectual freedom to think and write and lecture as we please. And then also in religious freedom. I mean, here we champion the cause that we have a right to practice our religious beliefs. I mean, so what we put into our soul is permissible. What we put into our minds is permissible. But where are we today on allowing the government, which seems so less important than our soul, less important than our intellect, but the government comes along and tells us every single thing that we can put into our bodies. You know, we can't even, you know. I happen to have been raised in western Pennsylvania, where we had a small dairy, and we pasteurized milk and sold pasteurized milk. But there's an issue in health today, and that is that some people believe they, you know, sort of innately believe they have a right to drink raw milk and sell it. You know, something really radical. So my dad would, I know, get very nervous about this, but I'm in favor of you drinking raw milk if you want to. But I'm not in favor of you telling me I have to drink raw milk, that's all. But, you know, everything we do, the government wants to regulate. So now I have this radical position that I want to legalize the fact that you can drink raw milk and actually trade it across state lines. And this is astounding that we've gotten to the point where the federal government doesn't even let you make your own decisions. And then lo and behold, they come along, and I know the federal government always takes good care of us. And one thing is they want to make sure. You know, a long time ago, they said it would be very bad if you drank alcohol. I mean, you know, drinking alcohol excessively is very bad. I've seen patients die with liver cirrhosis. So, you know, there's a difference between alcoholism, drinking too much and destroying your own health, versus having a glass of wine at dinner time. But it came along that, you know, in the 19-teens, our country decided, well, no, alcohol is bad. And you have no right, you shouldn't have a right to drink anything, any alcohol beverage. So, but what did they do? They said, this amend the Constitution. Now that's astounding. Do you think anybody would say today they're going to prohibit you from doing something with your own body and taking something in that they're going to amend the Constitution? No, they just run roughshod of it. Do they even ask the Congress to pass a law? No, some regulator writes some law. Like this week, the regulators are deciding, well, cigarettes are now a drug, and they're going to regulate cigarettes as a drug. And, it's on and on. Take the issue of marijuana. I can honestly say that I've never smoked marijuana. Matter of fact, I am so square, I guess. I've never seen anybody smoke marijuana. But the thing of it is, I think if somebody wants to smoke marijuana, they take their own risk. It's their own business, especially when the state legalizes it. In the states that have legalized it, in California and other states, they say that, and it's medicinal marijuana. As a physician, I think the jury is still out there, but the stories I hear, it probably is very helpful. And here they are, they're trying to legalize marijuana for sick people dying with AIDS and getting cancer treatment. And it is said to help. And the federal and the state passes a law that permits this, which should have been automatic, because up until 1938 it was automatic. But from 1938 the federal government took over regulating it. But not only does the federal government comes in and they overrule the state. So it's a states' rights issue. It's the whole Constitution. It's the whole idea of the republic. Who's making these decisions? First, it should be you as an individual, and your family, and your community. If necessary, the state is permitted under the Constitution to regulate some of these things. And just as they do on alcohol. There are regulations on alcohol. But this idea that we have become so complacent, allowing the federal government to tell us everything that we can do, if they can tell us what we can put into our bodies, and now they're incrementally telling us what we can put into our minds and also into our souls, that it's a dangerous trend, and the answers can be found in the Constitution. The Constitution defends liberty. The purpose of the Constitution is to protect liberty. It is to control the government, not to control the people. But if we have a free society, which I hope we do someday, the responsibility falls on you. Each and every one of us are responsible for our own acts. But today, the government's responsible for medical care for 70-80% of the bills. And so therefore they come in and say, well, if you ride your bicycle or your motorcycle and you fall down and bump your head, then the government has to take care of you, and we don't want those extra bills, so therefore we're going to tell you have to wear a helmet or wear a seatbelt, and on and on. So once you give this control and power to the government, then they come in and they add on all these regulations. And this to me is where the real problem is. We give up too much. We've lost confidence in ourselves. And if we believe the government is the economic safety net of last resort, that means they control everything. That means that the whole idea that if you have a right to your life and a right to your liberty and a right to your responsibilities, you ought to have a right to keep the fruits of your labor. That's what the real right is necessary. And of course, if you have the right to keep the fruits of your labor, the tax system becomes rather simplified. That means there would be no income tax at all. Of course, if you want to really get rid of another very sinister tax, and that is the inflation tax, there is another instrument of government that we would want to get rid of, and that is getting rid of the Federal Reserve System as well. You as a generation will have to face this issue of monetary policy. It may come soon because an economic crisis can bubble up rather quickly and the dollar may tumble. And if that's the case, there has to be monetary reform. The founders went through this. They had the runaway inflation of the continental dollar. They were explicit in the Constitution. No emitting of bills of credit, no printing of money. Only gold and silver could be legal tender because they knew the danger, the economic danger. But there's a political danger too, because if politicians